For 20 years, Mr. Lewis arrived at the office before sunrise. While the world outside still clung to sleep, he was already inside, pushing his cleaning cart down the silent hallways. The office, a towering symbol of wealth and power, gleamed under his touch, but he was invisible to those who worked there. To the employees, he was just the janitor. No one knew his story. No one asked. Every morning, he would enter the CEO's office, a space larger than his entire apartment, and clean it with the same care he would his own home. The polished mahogany desk, the glass shelves lined with expensive awards, the leather chair that had probably never known discomfort. This was a world he could never belong to, and yet, for 2 decades, it had been his responsibility to keep it spotless. He had watched CEOs come and go. Some were kind, offering a nod as they passed by. Others barely noticed him, treating him like part of the furniture. But through it all, Mr. Lewis remained. Silent, hard-working, unseen. Outside of work, his life was simple. He lived alone in a small apartment, his walls lined with old books and framed photographs of a past he rarely spoke about. There was a time when he had dreams. He had once believed in building something of his own. But life had a way of humbling a man, forcing him to accept what was instead of what could have been. It wasn't that he was unhappy, no, not exactly. But sometimes, when he looked around at the sleek office floors, the endless rows of glass windows overlooking the city, he wondered what it would have been like if things had turned out differently. If he had been the one sitting behind that desk instead of cleaning it. Then, one morning, everything changed. It was a cold Tuesday, and Mr. Lewis went about his routine as usual. He dusted the bookshelves, wiped down the desk, and emptied the trash. The morning sun cast long shadows across the polished floors as he moved quietly, making sure everything was perfect before the office filled with people. But as he moved to adjust the chair, something slipped to the floor. A letter yellowed with time, wedged between the armrest and the cushion. It had been hidden there for who knows how long. Curious, he picked it up. The envelope bore no return address, only the name for the future CEO. His hands trembled as he turned it over. Something about it felt important. For a long moment he hesitated. This wasn't his business. He should just leave it. But something in his gut told him otherwise. Taking a deep breath, he carefully opened the envelope. The words inside nearly made his heart stop. To whoever sits in this office, you must know the truth. This company was built on a foundation of lies. Mr. Lewis's eyes darted across the page, scanning the words, his heartbeat quickening with each line. The letter was written by someone named Walter Sterling, a name he didn't recognize. The words that followed were even more shocking. I was there when this company was founded. I was there when the first deal was made. And I was there when the betrayal happened. If you are reading this, it means you are in a position of power. And if you care at all about the truth, you will do what must be done. Mr. Lewis frowned, his fingers tightening around the paper. What betrayal? What truth? He kept reading. This company was never supposed to belong to the Harrison family. It was stolen. My business partner, Daniel Harrison, took everything from me. He forged documents. He manipulated contracts. He ruined my life. And when I tried to fight back, he destroyed any trace of my existence within this company. But I knew one day the truth would come out. Mr. Lewis swallowed hard. Daniel Harrison, the grandfather of the current CEO, the man whose name was on the building itself. Could it be true? Could the empire that had stood for decades have been built on something so corrupt? His hands trembled as he turned the page, desperate to know more. I don't know who you are, or if you will even care, but if there is any shred of justice left in this world, I ask you to set things right. My proof is hidden where it all began. The old storage room on the 15th floor, behind the second vent. The 15th floor. The storage room. Mr. Lewis had been there countless times. He knew it was rarely used, filled with nothing but forgotten boxes and outdated furniture. But now it seemed to hold a secret. He could barely process what he had just read. If this was true, it meant the entire legacy of Harrison Industries was a fraud. The truth had been buried for decades. He exhaled sharply, running a hand over his forehead. This was dangerous. This was bigger than him. He should just walk away, pretend he never saw it. But how could he? Just then, a voice cut through the silence. "Mr. Lewis, what are you doing?" His heart leaped into his throat. Standing in the doorway was the current CEO, Jonathan Harrison, a man known for his ruthless business tactics and cold demeanor. His sharp blue eyes locked onto the letter in Mr. Lewis's hands. A tense silence filled the room. Mr. Lewis knew he had just made a mistake that could cost him everything. Jonathan Harrison's cold blue eyes bored into Mr. Lewis, his jaw tightening as he took a step forward. "What is that?" Mr. Lewis swallowed hard, gripping the letter tighter, knowing he had seconds to decide. Tell the truth and risk everything? Or lie and pretend he had found nothing? His years as a janitor had taught him one thing: people like Jonathan never cared about men like him. But this letter changed everything. "Just something I found," Mr. Lewis said carefully, slipping the letter into his pocket. He kept his tone neutral, but Jonathan wasn't a fool. He had seen it. He knew something was off. Jonathan stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. "Hand it over." For the first time in 20 years, Mr. Lewis didn't obey. "I don't think so." A flicker of surprise crossed Jonathan's face. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by a janitor. "Excuse me?" His voice dropped lower, dangerous now. Mr. Lewis straightened his shoulders. "I don't work for you, Jonathan. I work for the company. And if what's in this letter is true, this company was never yours to begin with." Silence. Heavy. Tense. Jonathan's expression darkened. Then, to Mr. Lewis's shock, he laughed. A short, bitter sound. "You think some old letter changes anything? You think anyone cares? My family built this empire. No one is going to take it from us." But Mr. Lewis wasn't listening anymore. His mind was already racing ahead. The letter had mentioned proof hidden in the 15th floor storage room. If he could find it, if he could expose the truth, this empire might crumble. Jonathan took another step forward. "I'm going to give you one chance, old man. Walk away. Forget whatever nonsense you just read. You have no idea who you're up against." Mr. Lewis met his gaze evenly. "Neither do you." Then, before Jonathan could react, he turned and walked out of the office. He didn't run, didn't look back, just kept moving. Because now there was no turning back. The storage room was exactly as he remembered it. Dusty, forgotten, filled with old furniture and boxes stacked to the ceiling. The 15th floor was rarely visited by anyone other than maintenance workers, which meant he had time. He moved quickly, finding the second vent just as the letter described. Pulling out a screwdriver from his cleaning cart, he pried it open, his hands steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. Inside, wrapped in old cloth, was a stack of documents. Mr. Lewis's breath caught as he pulled them out. These weren't just any documents. They were contracts, original ownership papers, handwritten notes detailing the theft of the company, bank statements proving financial fraud. Walter Sterling hadn't been lying. This was undeniable proof that the Harrison family had stolen everything. And now Mr. Lewis had it in his hands. But he wasn't alone. The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. His pulse spiked. Jonathan. There was no time to think. He stuffed the papers into his bag, replaced the vent cover, and grabbed his cart just as the door swung open. Jonathan stood there, flanked by 2 security guards. "I warned you," he said, his voice low, controlled. "You should have walked away." Mr. Lewis didn't reply. He just gripped his cart tighter, forcing himself to stay calm. He had what he needed. Now he just had to get out. "Check his bag," Jonathan ordered. One of the guards stepped forward. Mr. Lewis's mind raced. If they took the documents now, it was over. Everything would be buried again. He did the only thing he could. He grabbed the nearest shelf and yanked it down. Books and files crashed to the floor, sending up a thick cloud of dust. The guards stumbled back, coughing, and in that split second, Mr. Lewis darted past them, moving faster than he had in years. Down the hall, past the elevators, toward the emergency exit. Jonathan's voice rang out behind him. "Stop him!" But Mr. Lewis didn't stop. He shoved through the door, bursting into the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time. 15th floor, 14th, 13th. He could hear the guards pounding down after him, but he had one advantage. He knew this building better than anyone. Instead of going to the lobby, he exited on the 10th floor. It was lunchtime, employees were everywhere. He slipped into the crowd, keeping his head down, blending in. By the time the guards reached the lobby, he was already out the front doors. That night, Mr. Lewis sat in his tiny apartment, staring at the pile of documents spread across his table. The weight of what he had just done pressed down on him. He had a choice now. He could take this to the authorities, but he knew how deep corruption ran. Jonathan's family had power, connections. They could make evidence disappear. No, if he was going to take them down, he needed to be smart. He needed the public to see the truth. And then an idea struck him. The next morning, employees arrived at the office to find something shocking. Every single document, every stolen contract, every bank statement had been printed and placed on every desk. Employees whispered in shock as they read. News reporters flooded the building, demanding answers. And Jonathan? He arrived to find the media swarming his office, his family's crimes exposed for the world to see. Mr. Lewis stood outside, watching it all unfold. He had been invisible for 20 years. But today he had changed everything. If you loved this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another jaw-dropping tale.